kinds of other things.
Yeah, I love purple.
I think purple's just like a bright and happy color.
It is, and that's why I wore it today. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Today's guest was on the show, and you said immediately, you must bring her back. She is a wonderful culinary instructor. She's a registered dietitian. I have the privilege of often presenting at some of the wonderful places she has or still presents, like Rancho La Puerta and the Mcdougall program. And she is truly an expert when it comes to pressure cooking. And today she's going to show us some Instant Pot magic. Please welcome back to the show, Jill Nussenow. Thanks again for coming back.
Well, thank you for having me, Chef AJ. And I want to say, I hope the magic happens today because you never know, live cooking, things happen. So I have a plan. We'll see if the plan works with me because you never know really about that. So my plan is to cook 2 different things in 2 different pots, show you how to make soy yogurt. Oh, I forgot to take it out of the fridge. So give me 1 second here because that would help if I could show you what's already been done. It's one of those things that sometimes you just forget, like a little thing. Which is really helpful to be in your kitchen because if you're in your kitchen, you can just grab it. But when you've already gotten to the place you're teaching, you don't have it. So that's the way that goes. So anyway, in one pot, I am going to show you what I do to make rice. And I'm making 2 kinds of rice here, and I'll tell you why. One is black forbidden rice from Lotus Foods, and the other one is brown rice. And the reason I mix them is I like them that way. That makes sense, right? And then the other reason is because the black rice is expensive and the brown rice isn't quite as expensive. So I really like to mix them. I think the texture's better and it still looks black. And the darker the color of your food, the more antioxidants it has. So this is going to go into the bottom of the pressure cooker. I have 1.5 cups of rice here.
I love black rice. It's so good.
Yeah, it's delicious. It's really my favorite. So let me grab some water.
Since you're a registered oh, sorry. You mentioned the darker the color of your food, the more antioxidants. And I've heard that too. But would that apply to even something like cauliflower? Because isn't that nutritious even though it's not dark?
Well, okay. So what I'm saying is all fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, they all have tons of nutrition. But if you get a choice between black and white, the black is going to be somewhat more nutritious. That doesn't mean only eat black food, which I had a client, she was like, oh, I'm only going to eat black beans. I'm like, no, if you love white beans, eat those too. So all plant foods are highly nutritious. So don't be like, oh, I'm not going to eat that anymore. So for each cup of rice, it's 1.5 cups of water. For the second cup, I use 1/4 cup less. So I've now made the math for myself, super hard, but I'm going to use 1.5 cups and then it would be 3/4 of a cup. So I'm only going to put in 2 cups. So just remember that. And so what I'm going to do with that is I have my rice in there. I'm going to take a wrap, which comes with your Instant Pot. And if it didn't, you can get one. And I'm putting that right in on the rice. And then what I have here is I have a cup of soaked black beans. And right here, I have another cup of soaked black beans. And they come out to about 2 cups. This I'm going to put in the freezer with a label on it that says soaked but not cooked. All right. That's really important because you'll ruin your day if you take out your black beans and you think they're cooked and they're not, and you eat them. It'll be a very bad day. What I have here is a piece of kombu, seaweed, a bay leaf, and that's all I'm going to put in these black beans because I'm not sure how I'm going to use them. And then for every cup of black beans that you soak, or any beans, you use 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of liquid. And so I'm going to put in 1/2 cup. Now, I'm going to put in just a touch more, like maybe a tablespoon more. And what people get confused about with pressure cooking is this does not cover the black beans. But when you're pressure cooking, you are not cooking by boiling. You are cooking with heat and steam. So this goes right on the rack. And then I'm going to do something kind of crazy, and you can do this. And you can put in another rack if you like. I actually don't usually do this, but I'm going to try it now because when you're live, you might as well do some crazy things here. Okay, that should work out okay. So I have a purple potato, purple all the way through, just to match Chef AJ and I today. I have a sweet potato, and I have a large Yukon Gold. And I'm going to put that in. Now, I think I'm going to have a rack problem. So let me undo the rack. What happened? A runaway potato. 1 minute, please. I'll give that potato a little bath. So I have a different rack. Let me grab that. I have a little rack. And I'm going to put that right in the black beans. So I want to show you. It's right in there. Can you see that? If you don't have another rack, don't even worry about it. Because usually I don't do that. So I'm just going to do it. Because I'm willing to see what happens because you're not going to eat the food and I am. So, all right. So I've got 3 potatoes in there. And I'm closing the lid. And then I'm going to set it. And by the way, this is not an Instant Pot. This right here, I'm going to show you. This is a Milty pot. And the Milty works virtually the same way, except it has one very cool feature that only the new Instant Pot has. So I'm going to set the time to pressure cook. It's on low, so I'm going to turn it to high. And I want this to be on for 15 minutes. I can do a little more, but 15 is good. Then I can set the pressure. So it can either quick release, it can natural release, or it has this auto, which releases intermittently. So I'm going to put it on natural because that's what I want. So that is like a really cool feature of the Milty pot that I love. Now, the new Instant Pot EVO has the same thing, I believe. That's what I've heard. I don't know because I don't have one. I have to get one more little bowl. I'll be right back.
That's okay. Hey, when are you going to Rancho again?
Well, I will tell you. If I had my passport, I would be going Saturday. But sadly, during this whole COVID thing, my passport expired and the passport offices were not really open. So I couldn't go. So I'm going back next spring. Sadly, I was just there in September. It was so beautiful.
They were open. I didn't realize they were open in September.
They opened September 5th. I went September 12th. So I went the second week they were open. I mean, so beautiful. So let me show you what I'm going to do. I have some millet here. And millet is a grain that's underused in this country. It is a whole grain. It's gluten-free. And I'm going to put this in the bottom of the pot. And then I'm going to do a little lentil show and tell. So for millet, you need 1 3/4 cups of water for 1 cup. So I may need a water refill at some point, like soon, but that's okay. I have plenty of it here. All right. So this millet is going right in to the pot with the water. And then I'm going to do the same magic trick. Take my trivet, put it in. And then what I'm going to do, get that there, is I'm going to put in the lentils, and I'm going to do 1.5 cups of lentils, which should work very, very well. Just grabbing another bowl.
Well, while you're grabbing a bowl, you get to ring the bell for Orangey.
Okay.
Much.
So people often want to know about this pot and pot, and you can use anything that's heat proof. And I can tell you, not everything is heat proof, because one day I grabbed the wrong bowl and I made some black beans and I went to take it out and my bowl cracked right down the middle. And so it wasn't a heat proof bowl. That kind of didn't work well. Oh, and the other thing I didn't tell you about the Milty is it has an automatic lock. You don't have to seal it or vent it. It does that all by itself. So in here, I have millet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some lentils. So I thought I would show you all my lentils, not because they're so amazing, but they could be your lentils too. So what I have in here, you can tell I couldn't decide what kind of lentils to make, so I didn't choose any. These are the regular brown green lentils, and I buy a lot of things. Well, I used to buy a lot of things in bulk, but these days there's no such thing. So I have those. I have these crimson lentils, which are really cool. And they are not split red lentils. Like these are split red lentils. Okay, they're really beautiful, but they always turn to mush. And I just got from a company called Palouse. They have a new brand that is called Clear Creek. And I got red lentils and gold lentils from them. And I cooked them last night. I'm going to show you what it looks like when they're cooked. And they sprout. So I was like, oh, they're whole lentils. So anyway, these are called crimson lentils. And when you look at them, they're just little lentils, right? They're whole. They're definitely whole. So there's those. And then there's these, which are the black beluga lentils, which, do you ever use these, AJ?
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, they're really pretty. And they stay whole too. So the crimson and the black stay whole. And then the red turn to mush. And I don't have any French green lentils that I took out, but I'm sure I have them because I use them. So I'm going to just do a mixture of lentils in here. And then let me get my regular lentils. And this should come out, they should come out pretty good. They won't be really mushy because I'm not looking for mushy. And a lot of people are like, well, I cooked my red lentils. They turn to mush. Okay, they're supposed to turn to mush. That's their job. They don't have another job to stay whole. They just turn to mush. So that's 1 cup of lentils. And I'm going to put that in there. And for my cup of lentils, I need 1.5 cups of water, which I do not have at the moment, but I will.
Some people are saying they can't see your pot, Jill. Maybe you can move it a little bit. They can't see your pot.
Oh, I can't really move. I'll show you the innard of the pot when I get there.
Great, thank you.
Do you want to see my lentil pot?
You bet.
Okay, so that's just the mixture of lentils. And I'm not going to put anything in here. And a lot of times when I don't know what I'm going to do with my food, I just leave it plain as is. So let me get some water. Pretend I'm there or talk about me while I'm not.
Let's talk about you when you're gone. I'd love to hear how they're doing it with Rancho. Are they doing less people? Are they doing like those?
Yes, they have to limit how many people because of COVID. The rules there are very strict. I'll tell you about it. So I want to tell you a little bit about the pot-in-pot cooking and why you can combine things that have different cooking times, because I think that's important. So lentils usually take about 6 minutes. The millet takes 10 minutes. But whatever is on top in here can take more time, because it's not in direct contact with the pot. So this is a little large for this, and it may affect my other dish, but that's okay. See if this one's smaller. I think it is. Yeah. So this comes, is it, or no, it's a little smaller. So this comes as a set, and people always want to use these sets together. But part of the problem is if I put the lentils in there and I put this on top, whatever I'm cooking is not steaming because the steam can't get in there really well. So it's a way that you could cook things that you maybe wouldn't want to cook a lot, but it's not a great way to cook other things. So I'm going to put in 1.25 cups of water in here with my lentils. This is going right on top of the millet. And then I want to cook one more thing, and that won't work. Let me see about my rack. Normally in a normal world, I'd check all this out first, but this is not a normal world. I'll just tell you a silly story. I went to Santa Rosa the other day. I used to live there, and now I live 2 hours away. So I went there and I was going to close my safe deposit box, and I forgot that maybe they wouldn't be open because, you know, I always went there and they were always open, but they weren't open. And I was like, oh, shoot. It took me about 5 seconds to forgive myself for that. I just moved along, but I thought, oh, silly me, because I didn't know. So back to the ranch. It's far less people because they can't have more people. The dining room, it's interesting. You would probably appreciate this. I mean, I wasn't sure whether I would or not, but everything is portioned out. So it's kind of interesting to see that, where it's all portioned. And so you don't really, you know, you can say, oh, I would like this without whatever, but there's not a whole lot that you can do about your food there. But I actually liked it better. I think it helped me make better choices. Not that I make bad choices there, but I tend to eat a lot, and I still ate plenty. But you cannot, you know, take your own anything. Somebody has to give you everything that you get. So let me set my pot here. This is a different pot. So
I didn't realize you moved. What city do you live in now, if I may ask?
I live in a teeny tiny little town at the coast called Gualala. And it's right by the Sea Ranch. It's really beautiful here. And so I love living here. Love living here. It's a little remote, which is perfect because then not everybody comes. We've had a lot of tourists this year once we were open. So that's a little challenging. And it's funny, the weekend now starts on Wednesday, which I didn't realize till, I don't know, a month or so ago. Wednesday, it starts getting busy. I guess people are working at home are like, it's Wednesday, you know, it must be the end of the week. Anyway, what I'm putting in this little dish here is I'm putting some mushrooms and onions. And there is a myth with the Instant Pot and other electric pressure cookers that you must put in 1 cup of liquid. And I have a recipe, I have a blog post about this and how that is truly a myth. You do not need 1 cup of liquid with everything. Because think about it, if you're cooking green beans, do you really want to put in 1 cup of liquid and let it boil or really mush your green beans? No, you just put in what you need to put in. Well, I'm going to be so bold as to put nothing in here with the mushrooms and the onions, thinking and hoping that perhaps, if I can get the lid on this pot, which I can, that perhaps they'll cook from the heat of everything else going on, because that's what I'm hoping for. So with mushrooms, you can cook about 8 ounces of mushrooms with 3 tablespoons of liquid. So that shatters that myth right there. What I have in this little container, mushroom container, is I have the things that I'm going to use to make stock. And I do that about once a week. And I keep some stock in my freezer in ice cubes because they're really easy to use that way. So
Great idea.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little garlic to the mushrooms and onions, only because I love garlic. And I pity anyone who has trouble eating it, but well, because you're not going to eat it with me, but that's all right. But I do know people who sometimes have trouble, and it really stems from their tummy, not from their mouth, their brain, or anything else. It's really a stomach issue, which can get resolved if you heal your gut, which is a really big thing, which I know you've had people on talking about it, and it is real. And I think most of the gut issues that people have these days come from processed food. Honestly, it's like really bad what's happened in the food world. So I'm always happy to be cooking with real ingredients here because I think that it makes a huge difference. I'm doing a talk tomorrow night on diabetes and nutrition for diabetes. And the more I got into the talk, the more I was like, yeah, you got to eat food that doesn't have labels, because it's the food with labels that causes issues. And, I don't mean like every food. I just mean in general, foods that have labels are generally not so great for you. So that's that. So yogurt. So this is just about ready to come to pressure. There's always a lot of pressure doing this live because you really don't know what's going to happen. So, but I can hear this is ready to pop up. So yogurt. I know a lot of people have questions about yogurt. And so I made some yogurt yesterday, and I'm going to make some more today. And this is like in real time. So you're going to get to see what happens with yogurt, what can happen, and what not to flip out about, because come to pressure. So I have all of my things for yogurt here. So this is a box of Trader Joe's soy milk. It doesn't have to be Trader Joe's soy milk. It can be any soy milk that has beans and water, and I highly recommend you get organic. There are 2 ingredients in here: water, whole organic soybeans. That's all that's in there. Now, if you try to make it yourself, I can pretty much tell you it never worked for me. How about that? That's what I can tell you. It never worked for me to make my own yogurt from soy milk I made. So you have so many choices here when making yogurt, and I want to point them all out to you. So what you can do, and I used half this box because I wanted to make the yogurt, and I eat some yogurt, but I don't eat a ton of yogurt. So I didn't want to make the whole box, because then I'd have 2 whole boxes of yogurt, because I'm going to show you what I do. So what I do is I take the milk, and usually room temperature, but I took this out a while ago so it would be at room temperature. And I take it and I shake it up, and then the magic happens. So I like to use these 8-ounce jars. I'll tell you why I didn't use 2 8-ounce jars, but I like to use the 8-ounce jars, and it can be these short ones, or it can be the taller ones. They're both 8-ounce jars. And they're not exactly 8 ounces, which is the funny thing. And the 4 cup jars that are quarts are not exactly quarts, because I used half of the container, and look what happened. I end up with 3 of them. So maybe they lie to me, but I ended up with a lot of yogurt here. So here's your choices. You can take a probiotic capsule. You probably want to get one. This is 25 billion. You probably want to get one with 50 billion. I'm going to tell you why I don't like the probiotic capsule, but some people swear by it. You can get probiotic powder. I find that it's inconsistent. It doesn't really work all the time. So I've made yogurt with it. I've had issues with it, and I'm like, done with you. Thank you very much. And I don't always have probiotics around, because I eat a lot of probiotic food that I make. I ferment a lot of food, so I don't really need to have the probiotics here. So you can get something like this, Bellenbella non-dairy yogurt starter. It's a little packet. You can use this for, I think it's up to 2 quarts, and it's 2 billion live cultures. I've used this. And it's interesting because not every yogurt starter tastes exactly the same, as you would expect, because they have different bacteria. So this is Cultures for Health. This is the one that most people use. Try and get it so you can see it. And this is a non-dairy, it's a vegan yogurt starter. You just take out the packet and shake it. It's hiding in there. They're so little. And you just shake it, and you can use up to 2 quarts with that for sure. So I'm only using half of the soy milk. So the other thing you can do is you can take a store-bought yogurt and add it to it. Now, there's ways you can do it. I could have taken that whole thing that I had and poured it into a quart jar, which I could do if you want. Maybe I'll do that, but I'm going to do it differently. So I could pour it into a quart jar. I could take a tablespoon. You can use 1 to 2 tablespoons per quart. So a total of a tablespoon of the store-bought yogurt, one that's active. Pour it in, mix it in, pour it in. But I'm going to cheat a little, and I'm going to add about a half a tablespoon, and I'm just going to mix that in to my yogurt. So I'm just mixing. It's like nothing special. I just don't want to see any huge clumps of yogurt in there. And that's that. And then I'm going to do the same for the other jars. And then I'm going to show you what happened with my yogurt, which I don't know yet because I did not try the yogurt. Because if I tried the yogurt, then there's nothing for you to see. So,
Jill, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Okay, well, first of all, Beth says she uses your cooking charts every day, so thank you. And Denny says, do you prefer the soy milk to almond or oat milk, etc., for a particular reason? Is it better for your health? I'm just curious.
Well, it's better for making yogurt because in order to make almond or oat or any other yogurt, often you have to add thickeners and gums and starches. And if you look, and I'll read the label here to you and I have to say, the soy is perfect the way it is. The others you have to play with a little bit. You can use coconut, but as you know, it's really high in fat, and I don't want to just eat fermented coconut milk, so I don't use it. So I'm going to just keep stirring. So anyway, this one has a lump in it. And so I have a little whisk. I could whisk this, but it's not that important. So soy works really, really well. Some people mix soy with cashew, and you can do that. When I was writing Vegan Under Pressure, I tried just about every milk you could try, and I could not get it to culture. So what's in here is almond milk, and they have a special process to do this almond milk. Locust bean gum, xanthan gum, agar, and live active culture. So there's not a whole lot in there, but you have to add gums to do it. So now what I do with these 3 jars is I have a little yogurt maker, but I can also put it in my Instant Pot. I set my Instant Pot I usually do 10 to 12 hours, and that seems to work really well for yogurt. And here's what I want to tell you about that. I do it at night because I want it to be next morning, and I don't want to tie up my pot all day. Not every Instant Pot has a yogurt feature, but the newer ones, and as long as it's not a Luxe model, has a yogurt feature. What happens is, and I'm just going to grab my my inner lining from my 3 quart because I'm going to turn this on. Now, of course, I found the bowl that I wanted before. But that's okay. So here's the liner for the 3 quart. And I just take my jars and I put them in. And these 3 jars fit really well. And then I just go turn it on and I put it on the yogurt feature. This is going to be ready past my bedtime. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. But I'll take care of that later. But now I want to show you my yogurt that I made. So this is the small one. And this I made in a bigger jar. And I made it in a bigger jar because I was too lazy to go grab another smaller jar. So I was like, well, I'm just going to fill it halfway. One of the things I noticed right away is that the consistency of this one is different than the consistency of this one. And I added the same amount of starter. So people often get upset, oh, my yogurt's runnier than I thought or whatever. So I'm going to try this one first. Now, if you dig down, what you'll find is that you'll get yogurt that's pretty firm. I mean, I didn't add anything to this other than the starter, and you can see it's pretty firm. So I'll taste it. Yep. And this one, you can see, is much firmer. It doesn't have any liquid. So I'm going to try this one too. And this one looks pretty good to me. So let me taste it. They taste just about the same. Now, one of the things I want to tell you, because this is really important with food, is that generally air is the enemy of food. So had I been smarter yesterday, I would have put this in an 8-ounce jar. So a lot of people are like, well, I just want to make a quart. Should I use a quart? And I usually say no, because every time you disturb that yogurt, it's going to kind of break down. So if you use a quart jar and just put it in a quart jar, which will fit in an 8-quart, 6-quart cooker, you're going to end up with not good yogurt at the end. What a lot of people like to do is they like to take their yogurt, and you can do this. And I don't do it often because I don't make yogurt that often, but you can take your yogurt and you can put it in ice cube trays, and you can save some of your current yogurt to use as a starter for your next yogurt. So you can use that as a starter too. So I've given you what, 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5 different ways that you can do yogurt. There's some more natural ways too, but I'm not really going to talk about those because they involve like the tops of chili peppers, and there's all kinds of things that can get fermentation happening. So it isn't that important that you get it done like that. But you can see I didn't end up with 2 perfect yogurts, but I ended up with 2 yogurts. So when I go to eat it, even though I've disturbed this one, which was the thicker one, I'm going to eat this one first because, as I said, air is the enemy of food. So what I often do with my food is like what I could do, but if I pour this out, it's going to not be good because the solids tend to settle around the bottom. I could take this and put it in a 1-cup jar, but more likely I'm going to take it and I'm going to do something with it. Like I have cucumbers, and maybe I could do that now. I could make raita, which is cucumbers and yogurt, and mix that up because I'm going to do a little cucumber show and tell, and I'm also going to do a little squash show and tell because I can. It's that time of year. Where I live, we start squash season a little later than a lot of other people, which is kind of funny, which I didn't realize because often I'm traveling at this time of year and I really don't pay attention. But I did pay attention this year because I really wanted to show you squash. And I was like, okay, so I'll get some squash. Well, this is my favorite. These are Delicata Squash. This little one is a Delicata. This bigger one is a Delicata. They come in a slightly different shades, shapes. Last year, many of the Delicata were this size. And this size is barely enough for me to eat. And I want to tell you how you cook them easily in the Instant Pot or other electric pressure cooker. I gave my friend, I had 2 little sweet dumpling squash, which are slightly different shape than this. This is a Carnival squash, and it's similar to the Delicata, but a little bit different. And one of the beauties of the Delicata is generally the peel is edible. And then I have 2 different kabochas here. This is the green one. This is the orange one. And it's really interesting just in picking those up. This orange one, even though it's larger, weighs a whole lot more than the green one. So when you buy squash, there's things you want to look for. And there's another 20 types of squash, but honestly, I was shopping and I didn't want to carry any more squash because one of the things about squash is they are heavy. And my bag, I'm going to show you what else I got. My bag was filled with these and the other things. So I was carrying like 20 pounds of vegetables, which is maybe not so good for my shoulder. So anyway, here we go with the other veggies. Oh my goodness. So I don't know about you, but I love sweet potatoes. And in my batch cooking every week, I make potatoes And they could be Yukon Golds. They could be these purple potatoes, and sweet potatoes. I always have those in my fridge. I mean, like 90% of the time. And the reason is because my favorite dessert, my husband thinks I'm a little wacky, but he's been with me for a long time, so he knows that already. But my favorite dessert is a slice of sweet potato. I mean, I just feel like, why would anybody eat anything else? This is so good. So I was lucky enough at the farmer's market to get this super ugly sweet potato. And sweet potatoes in Northern California don't grow that well or easily. And when I have seen them grown, they either come out as like teeny tiny little sweet potatoes or sweet potatoes 3 times this size. And you can see it's not beautiful. There's no way a beautiful sweet potato. It has some holes and so on. And I didn't want to cook it before I showed it to you, so I'm going to cook it later. And I forgot the name of the variety. It's not a variety you would buy at your store. So there's that. Then there are these Japanese sweet potatoes with white innards. And if you remember what I told you about the color, these are potentially one of my favorite sweet potatoes. And there's, they come in all different sizes. I had some really little ones this year, and they were perfect for like just a little eating. But these are white inside. And so they're not quite as nutritious, but they are starchier. So in that way, they're probably better for you. And then we have, I think that's one of those too. Then we have just the regular sweet potato with the orange innards, and they contain a lot of beta carotene, the precursor to vitamin A. So those are really good for you, compared to like the white ones inside. And then there's the Hannah sweet potatoes. And I have to say, these I don't find quite as appealing because the texture is different. They're a little softer. They're white in and out. I'm like, they're all right. And then here is one I know that AJ and I really like. They're a little big for earrings, but these are the purple sweet potatoes. They are purple inside and out. And the thing that's interesting, you could tell me if you think this too, they are definitely starchier. They're not quite as sweet. And the thing about them is, the one thing that I don't care for that much about them is I find the peel objectionable. The other ones, I can easily eat the peel, but these, I have to peel it off. It just has some kind of weird thing in my mouth that I go, no way. But they are beautiful. And, to take those and to mix them with those purple potatoes, I mean, you can make like killer potato pancakes that are sweet and not, which I think would be amazing.
Rosa wants to know, how do you cook Carnival squash, and can you eat the skin on that?
Okay, so Carnival, you cannot eat the skin. I know, it's really funny. It looks like almost the same as the Delicata, right? And I didn't tell you how to cook these because that's the important part. These can go into the Instant Pot. You just wash the outside whole, just whole. So what I would do is I would take my pot, and I have one set up, but I didn't put it in. I have 1 cup of water in here. I have the rack, and I would just put it in whole. Before I would put it in, this is really important. I learned this teaching the blind. They were always like, the labels don't taste that good, so make sure you take them off. So I would put that in. I would not just cook 1 squash at a time. I would put in as many as I could fit. This is my little 3 quart, so I could probably only fit 3. And I would put those all in. This is my 6 quart. So if I would put in as many as I could, which might be, and there's a rule with the Instant Pot. Fill it half full with food that expands and 2/3 full with food that doesn't. So I could probably get 4 squash in there. And then put the lid on. I have 1 cup of water. I would cook these. Now this one's going to cook faster because it's smaller. And so I would cook these for, I'd say 10 minutes and then let the pressure come down. And you can do it on steam. You can do it on manual. You can do it on high pressure. any of those things will work. So these would go right in and put on the lid, seal it up. Now, these, and I have done these before, pretty much you're only going to get one in at a time. The little one, maybe I could get another squash or two in there. I have done up to 3 pounds of like kabocha squash. And depending, and there's others that are called buttercup, which are not like butternut. They're different. They're more this shape, flatter on the bottom. Those can take up to 15 minutes. So one of the things with squash and other vegetables is, number one, they don't tell their age. So you don't know how old they are. This is the beginning of squash season. So you know. The newer the squash, sometimes the softer it is. And as it goes through time and the moisture comes out, they sometimes cook a little more quickly. But, you know, there's a standard. It's usually somewhere between 8 and 15 minutes. I've never cooked one for more than 15 minutes, but maybe I just haven't had like a giant butternut or something like that. And the reason I haven't had a giant butternut is because butternut is not my favorite squash. There's a little one called honey nut that is sweeter than the butternut that I absolutely adore. And you can tell I don't like giant squash. Well, first of all, if you get a giant squash, you have to cut it to get it in the pot. And the second thing is I don't want too much around. I mean, I want enough for the week and I do freeze squash, but I just don't want too much. So I don't make giant squash. So I went shopping in my fridge and I took out some things because I wanted to show you because, you know, I said I was going to do some batch cooking and some of it I did prior. And so this was a vegetable dish I made last night. I made it on 0 low pressure with a quick release. And it's basically summer squash because we're like at the end of summer squash season here. And there's a piece of potato in here because I had cooked potato. And so I just made, and I put some mushrooms in because mushrooms are extremely good for you. So I had that. So this was left over, which means I made at least twice as much because I eat a lot of food. My husband hates mushrooms, which is a bonus for me because he won't touch them. So this was, I wish I would have taken a picture. This looked kind of like a delicata, but not really. It was green. It was hard. And she didn't know what it was at the farmer's market, which for me was excitement. I'm like, you don't know what it is? She goes, well, it could be a spaghetti squash, but I don't know. So it turns out it was a cross, a spaghetti squash cross. And I am not, I don't know, a lot of people love spaghetti squash, and that's easy to cook in the Instant Pot, usually 8 to 10 minutes. You can do it whole. And when you cut it, you want to cut it down the middle, not the long ways, because you get better spaghetti strands. It is a little harder to get out those seeds. But it's funny, I am not a huge fan of spaghetti squash, but I have to say I tasted this and I thought it was mighty delicious. And it was a little bit more green than a typical spaghetti squash because it had a green outside. It looked like a zucchini almost, but big and almost the shape of the spaghetti squash, but it was straighter. And I couldn't save it to show you. And I will tell you, the skin on that was terrible. I mean, beyond awful. I looked at it, I tried. It was like eating my shoe. And then, so, you know, when I have all this food cooked, then the excitement starts. So this was the yellow lentils. Actually, these were the red lentils from Clear Creek. And I wasn't sure what to expect because, you know, I told you I sprouted them and I was like, oh, they must be whole. They're going to stay whole. Well, truth is, you can see this is not at all whole. This is complete mush, which is beautiful because this is what I love about cooking at home. I just use the fork, eat it, and say, oh, yeah, it's my food. You know, when I'm teaching in person, I can't do that. But anyway, this I can now use for various things. I can make it into a dip, a spread, hummus, soup. veggie burgers. I mean, there's so many things I can do with this. And in fact, it came out so thick that I was having trouble like eating it as it is. So I need to add some liquid to it. So I kind of made it into like a dal, a little soup kind of thing. And I added some tomatoes to it and chopped hot peppers because I like those. And you can do whatever you want with it. You can freeze it and save it for later. But I'm going to turn it into probably veggie burgers with some of the ingredients that I pull out of these pots in just a minute. So it's really, you know, it didn't take very much. In fact, I turned on my pot. I went outside. I took a walk. I came back, and my red lentils were cooked. Surprisingly mushy, but cooked. So that worked really well for that. And then I wanted to show you because I have them. And my husband just discovered how much he loves. He said, I don't know why I ever ate green peppers. And I don't know either. I never eat green peppers, haven't eaten them for my whole life, have always disliked them. I won't use the word hate, but always disliked them. So I now have a yellow pepper, which is turning a little orange. I have an orange pepper. This is a pimento pepper, and this is just a different type of red pepper. As is this one. I said at the farmer's market, I'll take all of those. So I took all that they had. Peppers are a great source of vitamin C. They're super good for you. And I said to him last night, because I listened to this talk, which was really, really good about how people in the US are not eating enough vegetables. It was put on by the Sustainable Produce Institute or whatever it was. And the woman said, and I want you to hear this clearly, 10% of Americans are getting the recommended servings of fruits and vegetables. I was like, oh my goodness. I said to my husband, you and I are making up for a whole bunch of people because we eat the recommended servings. And I'm like, they don't. And how is that working? I don't know. I'll tell you, my parents-in-law just had to be evacuated because of the fires in Santa Rosa. And they came to visit, and they are older and okay. However, I was shocked. I mean, absolutely shocked at their lack of fruit and vegetable eating. I just couldn't even believe it. Like I make a giant salad every night, and I went to give it to my father-in-law. He's like, no, that's enough. I mean, like the look on his face was like I was trying to push poison into his mouth. And I was like, oh. And then I thought, I bet that more people than just him only eat like the tiniest amount. And I was like, wow. So it's kind of shocking to hear that and to really get it in my head that people are not eating their fruits and vegetables. And you know that I do, AJ does, everybody I know eats plenty of them. So flying peppers. So anyway, that's the beginning of my batch. And then I'm going to open these pots in just a second or two and show you. These are on natural release. So I'm going to do it a little sooner because, you know, how long can you wait, right? How long do you have to wait? So I like to wait 15 minutes if I can, but if I can't, 10 minutes is fine. So with this pot that has the setting for the release, and when I do this in person, people like flip out, whether it's the venting or whatever, but I'm going to hit the release. And so there wasn't much pressure in there anyway, just a little. And you know, the pot won't let me open it till the pressure's down, which it is. So I'm going to open the pot. Now, here's the part that is always interesting. Is my food cooked? So my potatoes could use a little more cooking. So they're going to come out just a little more. But I'm going to cut a piece of the sweet potato because I'm probably going to have that for lunch. And I'm going to get really smart and I'm going to grab my tongs, and I highly recommend you do the same. Do not do this with your hands. So there is an orange sweet potato. which will be delicious later.
So Tiffany said, what is again the setting to cook a sweet potato and how much water? What button do you use?
I usually do 12 minutes, for 12 to 14 minutes, depending on the size of the sweet potato. So let me grab my giant sweet potato here. A sweet potato like this, the purple ones seem to take a little longer, would be about 12 minutes. This one I'd probably do 15 minutes or more. What I did recently that I thought worked really, really well is I cut the sweet potato lengthwise and I laid it on top and I did it with the rice and it took the 15 minutes. I think something like this might take up to 20, something this size. So it really depends on the size of the sweet potato. I have to tell you, whatever I have in this pot, which I've now forgotten, smells so good. It is kind of crazy. So now I remember what's in the pot. I have black beans. And so there's still a little liquid in there, which is fine. You'd rather have extra than not enough. And let me see if they're cooked, because if they're not, I don't want to serve them to you. Yeah, they're good. And what I like to do with my black beans, just to let you know, and I can't do it when I cook pot in pot, is I like to put these in again. And then what I do is, and if you want a black bean facial, let me tell you, this is the way. It's really amazing. So what I like to do is I like to put them in and put them on saute and then evaporate some of that liquid and get them a little creamy, and I can add my seasonings then. But if I don't know what I'm going to do with them, I'll just leave them like this, because I could turn them into black bean soup. I could turn them into burritos. I can make, well, it's Tuesday. I might make tacos. You never know. So down in the bottom here is the really exciting part. And always remember to turn your pot off so it's not continuing to cook.
Jill,
there's a little rice on the rack, but nothing to be concerned about. And there is, oh, let me turn you. There is the rice. So what I have here is, now I cooked 1.5 cups of rice. I have my rice for the week. Okay. And I also will have millet and lentils and some mushrooms and onions with some garlic. So I have right now, other than vegetables, which I have some left over, I'm pretty set for the week, because I have to tell you, I eat really simply. If it takes a lot of time and effort, I'm not likely to do it. In fact, I have to be inspired by people posting about my cookbook, Vegan Under Pressure, or the new fast food, and telling me what they made, so I can be inspired to make whatever it is, because I'm like, oh. And I have to say, during this time of COVID, I actually cooked more from my own cookbook than I ever had, because I had the time to do it, which was just amazing. And I'll tell you one funny story. My husband says he eats peanut sauce. So I have a really simple recipe for vegetables with peanut sauce. I made it, and he was like, oh, that's good. I'm like, so for the last 5 years, I haven't made this dish because you told me you didn't like it, and now you like it. So I just thought it was kind of funny.
Right.
So you have a question for me?
Yeah, Kelly says, which of your recipes are great dump recipes that can easily be made in a hotel room?
You know, a lot of them are. If you look at like there's a one pot millet, lentil, and something else, you can just throw it all in there. And you know, I have taught cooking for so many years, and I taught at Santa Rosa Junior College. So I'm used to doing like a saute step and so on, but it's not necessary. You can throw everything in the pot. Chili, of course. You know, there's all kinds of things you can make really easily. One of my recipes uses frozen vegetables, which are not my absolute favorite, but you know, there's life, and I understand that. So whatever you can throw in, like, you know, it says one pot and it just has one step, just throw it in there. So the recipe that I'm making this for, that I'm going to redo after, is the lentil winter squash and mushroom chili. And so I want to show you this. If you love mushrooms and onions, you're going to love this. But what I wanted to show you is there's liquid, I don't know if you can see it, in this dish, right? And maybe I'll pour it out. There's liquid in the dish, and you know I put in 0 liquid. 0. So this is just from the steam that was generated, and I'll show you what's in here. It's beautiful mushroom liquid from onions and mushrooms and so on. And you saw that I didn't put anything in. And here we go. So what I have in here is almost a 1/4 cup of liquid from putting nothing in there. So let's see what happened in here. This is my favorite part. It's like so exciting. I mean, after 20 plus years of teaching pressure cooking, it's always exciting to me to see what happened. Okay, that's a little messy, but here are my lentils, my mixed lentils, and they look to me just perfect. So now I can make the lentil chili if I want in a different way. I'll just do it with cooked ingredients. And then down in the bottom here, I have my messy millet. So you did lose a little on the rack, but it's worth it for not having to take the time to cook. And so here's my cooked millet. And millet tends to get a little bit sticky. I have made millet on the top and it doesn't get sticky. But this combined with like the lentils or the black beans, I can make veggie burgers. I mean, I have endless amount of food that I can do here. And once I have my squash cooked and my sweet potatoes, I'm done. You know, I already have sweet potato and I don't have any squash cooked, but I have sweet potato, I have lentils, I have millet, I have mushrooms, and I don't need more food than that other than some greens. And I cook my vegetables usually every other day and make a big amount. And then I just kind of mix it together. That's what it's all about for me, just mixing it together. So I could take a bowl. If I had a beautiful bowl in front of me, I could take the millet, I can put the lentils on top, I can add some mushrooms and onions, maybe chop up some pepper or tomato, some other onions, some cilantro, whatever you like, you can put in there. So this is the basis of my eating, and I hope it will become the basis of your eating. So thank you for tuning in.
Absolutely amazing.
If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Guys, have any more questions for Jill? Wait a moment.
I do want to say I have a monthly newsletter, and if you want to sign up for it, you can sign up on my website, thevegiequeen.com. I don't have any books in the works, but Vegan Under Pressure has been wildly popular beyond my belief, and I'm thrilled about that. But I have another pressure cooking cookbook called The New Fast Food. So, and I'm not creating a whole lot of new things because I think that I like to teach people the basics and just go from there. So
terrific. This was a wonderful presentation. I love that you batch cook
Thank
and
you.
eat simply like me. Do you still teach at the Mcdougall program, even though it's online now?
I haven't yet, but I'm hoping to be able to do that soon. So I think that's in the works. And I've been teaching for a local organization here called Mcdougall Health Alliance. And I've done some Zoom classes. In fact, I wanted to mention that I have a Zoom class for sale on my website. It's not expensive. It's called Beans Plus Grains Equals Burgers. And I show you how to cook the beans and grains and how to make them into veggie burgers. And then I cook them in my Mealthy Crisplin, or you can do it in any air fryer. And they are so delicious. And when I make them, I don't make like 3 or 4. I make like 10 or 12, and then I stick them in the freezer. So I'm all about the ease of eating, and it's so easy to just pull out a veggie burger and crumble it on my soup or my salad, or put it in some lettuce or a bun. Or You know,
Okay.
if it's easy, I'm doing it.
Do you have a few more minutes? Because once I ask for more questions, a bunch of them came in. So let's start here. Dina says, do you eat nuts and seeds and avocado and soy?
Okay. I eat every one of those things. So I don't have a problem with them. I don't, I'm very careful about what I eat. And so, like I said, I make the vegetables with peanut sauce. I use a total of 3 tablespoons of peanut sauce for the whole batch of the food. So I don't think it's excessive. I don't need to lose weight. So I monitor how much I eat of nuts and seeds. And you asked about soy. I do eat soy. I eat tofu, not a whole lot. The recommended amount, if there is a recommended amount, turns out to be maybe a pound a week of tofu or tempeh. I haven't even been eating that much of it, not only because there was a shortage, but also because I've just been enjoying the legumes so much, and there's such a variety that I don't eat a lot of soy. Is there another one? Nuts and seeds. Oh, avocado. Okay. I have an avocado limit, and my limit has been for a very long time, generally 1 medium avocado a week at most. And I don't even eat one every week. I like those little avocados because then I have 2 in a week. If somebody else is doing avocado for me, like when I go to Rancho La Puerta, I might eat a little bit more, but I'm also walking 7 to 10 miles a day. So it really depends. I mean, if I was just sitting around, I probably wouldn't eat a whole lot of avocado, and I'd probably stick with my 1 a week limit. And like I said, it's not every week. So I don't really limit those kind of fats. But I pay attention to them. And I think that's the key, is like, they're just not like, oh yeah, I can have, half a cup of tahini. It's like, no, I love tahini, but it's a tablespoon at most. So thank you for asking that.
Terrific. And there's a question. Can you talk about the differences in your cookbooks?
Okay. So the new fast food was written for the stovetop pressure cooker, but it works with the Instant Pot. And it is the more basic of the 2 cookbooks. It has just more basic recipes. I call Vegan Under Pressure Pressure Cooking 2.0. And it has the more adventurous recipes. In fact, I talk about it, like food from around the world. And, I have 3 recipes which are so well loved. They're Ethiopian recipes. They're super easy to make in the Instant Pot, and people just love them. So it's just really depends. But for people who are just starting out, the directions will seem a little weird in the new fast food, but it's really easy to translate them. You use the amount of time at pressure and the type of pressure release. It will say something like bring up to pressure, bring down, but it's, set a pot on medium heat on the stove, which you don't do. You just hit the saute button. So that it's just a little bit different. I also do want to mention, and I'm surprised no one asked, about the oil issue. I have written my cookbooks, and I have 4 of them. I have 2 others. They do have oil in them. If you do no oil, my best advice is, and I have it in Vegan Under Pressure, to do a dry saute and add liquid if you need it. But you don't have to use oil. There may be 2 recipes in each book that really oil is kind of important. So don't make those recipes, or make them how you want them, or use some aquafaba instead of oil, because that will work just fine. And that is the juice of chickpeas, which when you make your own chickpeas in the Instant Pot, it's super easy to get aquafaba rather than opening a can of beans. To that, I want to say, I do have beans for emergencies. But luckily, I haven't had any emergencies, so I'm eating the beans that I make. And I do freeze a lot of what I make, so that I don't have to think when I'm tired and hungry. I'm like, oh, I have chili, I have black beans. Number 1 tip, label and date your food in the freezer, because it will help you.
Terrific. And Janet says, do you rinse rice and lentils first?
Well, that's a good question. It depends where they came from. And so sometimes yes, and sometimes no. So, I'll take a look at them, and often, you can rinse them. but I don't really do the rice rinsing. I don't use a lot of California rice. I use more imported rice, which tends, sometimes it's dirty, but if it's not, I'll just use it as is. But it's always okay to give it a rinse, just kind of like you would rinse your regular food. I have to say, honestly, I don't always do that.
Great. And Robin, are you in the desert yet? She says, do you cook all your vegetables unseasoned and then add seasoning later?
No. Actually, vegetables, I tend to season because I really like them really flavorful. I have a recipe in the new fast food called Big Time Broccoli, Thyme. And what the pressure cooker does so well is it seasons. So you add sprigs of thyme to your broccoli, a little bit of broth, and you cook it. And the thyme flavor goes right into the broccoli. So I do often season my vegetables when I'm cooking them. It's funny you asked that, because last night I was kind of rushing to get the vegetables done and I didn't season them. And I was like, darn, I wish I had. But also I didn't know what I was going to do with them. So if I don't know what I'm going to do with my vegetables, I might leave them unseasoned. But if I know how I want them, I will add seasoning. And thank you for asking, because that is the key to my cooking, is seasoning. Herbs and spices, vinegar, lemon juice, lime juice, zest, all of that. This is just plain food. But once I take it and add those other things to it, it's delicious. It turns into something completely different. Alchemy, that's the magic right there.
Great. And a few people are saying, could you just talk a little bit more and show the stacky thing again and how it works?
Yeah. Okay. So how to stack, so I don't use, and I won't touch that part because that part's hot. I'll touch this part because this part's cool. So I don't use the stacker as stacked, okay? I use the parts of the stacker. And the reason is whatever's in the bottom of the cooker will cook better directly in the pot. So I have that. And let me get my rack, which you can see has millet in it because it was on the bottom. So I cooked the millet. I put that right in there. I could show you with the one I actually put in, which is my lentils. I put it right on the rack like that. So that was right in the millet. This went right on top. And then I had a little thing, and I just put the mushrooms right on top of that. So you need a trivet. Some people use a higher trivet. I find that I can't get as much in the pot, and my goal is efficiency. So that is what I do. It's this one, or there's another one, and they're really nice because they have handles, and then I don't have to touch the hot pot to lift it out, which I did anyway. So I don't usually use both parts. Now there are some that are wider and shorter. I don't find actually stacking them to be better than not stacking them, because whatever's in that middle pot, let's say it's the lentils, it can't get the steam going to it. So I don't do them together. This also comes with a lid. So let's say I wanted, and I have tried this and not very successfully. Let's say I also wanted to cook some, like greens might work, but to put them in with just like a tablespoon or two of water, maybe a little seasoning. I might put the lid on that to kind of protect them from the steam, so they'll get hot, but they won't get cooked. But I rarely use the lid, but I do use the inner parts. And it doesn't have to be this. It could just be, enamel stainless steel. It could be a stainless steel bowl. It could be heat-proof glass. It really doesn't matter what it is, but it's one of those things. So.
Great. Gina wants to know, Dina, excuse me, I was thinking about Gina because she's a future guest on the show doing a makeup episode. If you can pop popcorn in a pressure cooker.
I never have. I have heard that you can, but I never have. And so I wouldn't do it myself. I think there's better ways to pop popcorn.
Great. Well, I think that's all the questions that I see. And thank you so much. This has just been a wonderful presentation.
Thank you for having me, and I hope I'll be back.
It is my pleasure. What the city you told me you live in? I've never heard of this. So where is it near? Like,
Have
what
you
city?
heard of the Sea Ranch?
I have not.
Okay. Have you heard of Bodega Bay?
I have.
Okay. So I'm about an hour from Bodega Bay. I'm north. I'm the southernmost town in Mendocino on the coast.
Are you close to the Stanford Inn?
I am about, I can tell you, 55 minutes from the Stanford Inn. I've gone there a few times, and it's lovely. So yeah.
Wow.
But where I'm on the southernmost part of the Mendocino coast, it's a teeny tiny little town, and it's really it's lovely. We have 2 supermarkets, so it's really easy.
Move, so no more seeing you in Santa Rosa, I guess. A question just came in from Jordan. Do you have a mock cheese for the burgers in your class?
Do I in my book?
Well, I guess you're talking. You have Zoom classes now, and maybe there's one on burgers.
Oh! I plan to in the future have a fermented cheese class, but I don't have anything at the moment. But I plan to do that. I just haven't figured out the logistics of it, and I hope to do a fermenting class. However, doing a fermenting class is challenging because you have to do all the work beforehand, and then you show people what the result is. It's kind of like the yogurt. I couldn't like show you yogurt unless I made yogurt. And so there's a lot of moving parts to that. But during this COVID time, I have been experimenting with fermented nut and seed cheese to my delight, I have to say. It is amazing. It's so good when you make it yourself. And the nice thing is I take it and I freeze it. Like, you should see my freezer. It's quite a delight. I take it and I freeze it, and then I just small amounts. I use like a little ramekin, and they're just little pieces of cheese stuff that you can put on the burgers. But it's not a melty cheese. It's more like a tangy, like almost creamy, but I put them in the dehydrator, and so they're like little cheese things. In fact, I had some this morning.
Oh, that sounds great. Well, this was just wonderful. Thanks again, Jill, and thanks all of you. Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back in a few hours at 2 p.m. We have another wonderful cooking demo by J.L. Fields, whose new book comes out today. Goodbye, my purple friend.
Thanks, AJ.
Bye.